The bouquet slipped from my hand, landing soundlessly on the floor. In the bed meant for our wedding night, Camille, my fiancée, lay tangled in white silk in another man's arms, still wearing her wedding dress. Tomorrow was supposed to be our wedding day. I gave a hollow laugh. You do realize this is our bridal suite, right? Camille didn't even blink. That's exactly why it's exciting, she said with a smirk. Isn't that what thrill seekers do, go all the way? And now that you found out, so what? You're just the loyal mutt my father fed. You think you've got the spine to divorce me? I didn't answer. Just shook my head and turned to leave. Pathetic, she scoffed as I reached for the door. The last thing I heard before it shut behind me was the return of heavy breathing. For years, I'd climbed the ladder under her father Leonard's shadow, faithful, reliable, easily controlled. Camille thought she had me wrapped around her finger. What she didn't know was this: Leonard lost his mind 6 months ago. Early onset dementia. Since then, I've quietly seized everything, every title, every decision, every ounce of power. All it would take is one word from me, and she'd be financially ruined. I made 2 calls. The first, to notify every guest that the wedding was off. The second, to Tessa, my assistant. I told her to inform the board, starting today, I'm done shielding Leonard Hartley and his daughter. The board moved fast. Ruthless always recognizes ruthless. By the time I stepped outside the building, Camille's driver was already there, rushing toward me with wide, panicked eyes. He gave a deep, deliberate bow, then slid behind the wheel of the Bentley and drove away. That Bentley, and the driver who came with it, had been a gift from another shareholder, hoping to curry favor with Leonard. But now? Camille meant nothing to them. She was still upstairs, rolling in silk sheets with her new toy, oblivious to the fact that as of today, forget luxury cars, she couldn't even afford a subway ride. Even this ocean view apartment, the 3,000-square-foot penthouse, wasn't truly hers. A real estate developer had handed it over under Camille's name, hoping to get close to me after hearing about our wedding. I had just settled into my own car when I spotted a swarm of property management staff heading upstairs in a frenzy. That oceanfront suite? No longer her domain. It didn't take long. Half-dressed and furious, Camille was dragged out by 2 security guards. Her voice rang out in panic, shrill and desperate. Don't touch me. What the hell do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea who my father is? Leonard? Leonard was nothing now. Ever since I stripped him of power, he didn't even get to keep his own name. Camille's eyes locked on mine through the windshield. She tore herself free from the guards and ran at my car, slamming her palms against the window, her voice turning venomous. Gideon. What the hell is this? You think you can play these games with me? I'm calling Leonard, I'll make sure you lose everything. She still didn't get it. The one who's lost everything, is her. The man beside her turned to me, panic in his voice. Look, what we did was wrong. I know that. But you can't just throw her out like this. The Hartleys practically raised you, you grew up on their charity. Don't forget how much her father did for you. I glanced at him. Connor. Camille's first love from her school years. I knew exactly who he was. I knew everything. Back when Connor got accepted to study abroad in the UK, Camille gave herself to him for the first time. That night, she got pregnant. She flew to California alone to have an abortion. Later, she sobbed in my arms, telling me she'd lost his child. She had loved him, truly, for years. And me? I had given the Hartley family my loyalty, my labor, my silence. For years, I carried their ambitions on my back like they were my own. Now, I wanted only one thing in return, their empire. I didn't respond to Connor. Just looked ahead and said to my driver, calmly, drive. The world outside the window began to blur as the car reversed out of the driveway. Camille ran after it, pounding on the glass like a madwoman. "Gideon," she screamed. "You listen to me. At the shareholder meeting the day after tomorrow, I'm cleaning house. You're out of the company, you hear me? Out. Ungrateful? Shameless?" I let out a laugh. All these years, people believed Leonard was the one who lifted me up. What they didn't know, or chose to forget, was how he built his empire. Smuggling, tax evasion, corruption. And when it all came crashing down, it was my father, loyal to the bone, who took the fall. Leonard, maybe out of guilt, took me in and gave me his last name. I still remember the first day I arrived at their estate. Camille stood on the marble staircase like a princess in a palace, looked me over, and sneered. "They say your dad was my dad's lapdog. That makes you mine, starting today." Leonard had laughed. A big, hollow laugh. Then he patted me on the back and said, "Kids say the darndest things. Don't take it to heart." But I did. From that day on, I lived for the Hartleys. At school, Camille never called me by my name. Just, puppy. She'd make me carry her books, do her homework. And if I ever hesitated, even for a second, she'd blow up in front of everyone. "You stupid orphan. If my dad hadn't taken you in, you'd have starved to death. And this is how you repay us? You're not even grateful." One Christmas, I showed up in a new sweater, simple, nothing fancy. She announced to the entire class that her father bought it. That my allowance, my meals, everything I had came from the Hartleys. I was the loyal dog. From childhood through adulthood. And when I joined the Hartley group, that loyal dog climbed the corporate ladder, step by obedient step. But every step I took to climb that ladder was soaked in invisible blood. Quietly, I cleared Leonard's path, erasing every threat, every rival who dared to challenge Camille's future. I silenced them all. I built a throne. And I waited for her to come home and sit on it. Camille spent those years partying, traveling, indulging in every fleeting desire while I paved the road she'd eventually walk down in heels, straight into power. She never once looked back. But in hindsight, maybe I should thank her for that. For being so consumed with pleasure that she didn't even notice her father slipping away. If she'd paid more attention, maybe I wouldn't have been able to seize everything that was once his. On the third day, she showed up. With Connor at her side. She stormed into my office without knocking, slamming the door open with a bang. "You bastard," she shouted. "You really went through with it? You cancelled the damn wedding?" I looked up at her, calm as ever. "Can I help you with something?" "Where the hell is my father?" she snapped. "All my cards are frozen. I had to borrow money from Connor just to get here." I didn't even blink. "Leonard's away on business." Business? That man couldn't tell day from night anymore. He didn't even remember his own name. He'd been living in a memory care facility in Canada for months, a retirement home with locked doors and round-the-clock staff. Camille stared at me, searching my face, and then let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "You know," she sneered, "I was going to wait for the shareholder meeting tomorrow to kick you out for good. But screw it. I can't stand the sight of you. The more I look at your smug little face, the sicker I feel. Get out of that chair, you don't belong here." She slapped a document down on my desk. I picked it up. A personnel appointment letter. "Mr. Vance is hereby appointed executive assistant to the group CEO. Upon returning to the country, he will assume the role immediately." Leonard's signature sat at the bottom. Dated exactly 6 months ago. So that was the plan. Start him as my assistant, then edge me out of the way. They wanted me to train my replacement, hand him the keys to the kingdom I built. In the end, Leonard really did see me as nothing more than the Hartley family's guard dog. Camille folded her arms, lips curled in contempt. "That suit you're wearing," she sneered. You'll be lucky if you get to wear it for another 3 months. That chair? It belongs to Connor. Connor had the gall to look apologetic. Sorry about this, he said with mock humility. Camille said things were a little chaotic at the company. She just asked if I could help. I didn't know it'd turn into all this. I nodded slowly and extended my hand toward him. Welcome aboard. Connor took it, full of smug triumph. He thought this handshake was the beginning of his reign. I held it for a beat, then released him. But, I said lightly, you stepped into this office with your left foot first. That's bad luck for the company's image. Head to HR and process your termination. His smile cracked. Camille's eyes went wide. You've lost your damn mind. You really think you can fire Connor? I leaned back in my chair, casually flipping through the document. I'm firing my assistant, I said mildly. Is that a problem? Connor was still trying to keep up the act. He let out a strained laugh. Gideon, come on. Be reasonable. Excuse me? I shot him a look. Who gave you permission to call me that? He stiffened. Look, I get that you're upset, he said, regaining some composure. But this was Leonard's appointment. If you fire me now, right before the shareholder meeting tomorrow, that's going to look really bad for you. Will it? I pulled out my phone, switched on the front-facing camera, and studied my reflection for a moment. Then, completely serious, I said, I think I look fantastic. Strong jawline. Great eyes. Honestly, I'd say this is the best I've looked in months. He stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Frozen. Speechless. Camille, seething, swept all the files off my desk with a crash. Gideon, she shrieked. You really think you're the CEO now? Let me tell you something, the only reason I ever agreed to date you, hell, to marry you, was because my father liked the way you groomed a bunch of corporate puppies. He figured reeling you in would win over the board. Her voice turned icy. Well, guess what? The company's stable now. We don't need you anymore. I nodded slightly. That much I'd known all along. She kept going, each word a dagger dipped in acid. You're about to be broke. You think I didn't plan for that? That prenup you signed? Our money stays separate, married or divorced. And you? You'll be so poor, you won't even be able to afford a box of macaroni and cheese. That's when I started laughing. A real, unrestrained laugh. All thanks to that prenup. You're still laughing? Camille shrieked, barely holding back another outburst. But I simply rose to my feet and adjusted my tie. Apologies, I said calmly. I have a meeting to attend. Can't entertain you two any longer. Connor gave a theatrical sigh, trying to sound diplomatic. I get it. You're still trying to process things. Look, why don't I start tomorrow? Once you've had some time. And don't worry, I recognize talent. When I take over as CEO in 3 months, I'll make sure to keep you on, as my deputy. I didn't bother replying. I walked out, dialing Tessa as I exited the building. She picked up immediately. Sir? Is it done? I asked. Her voice was crisp. Certain. As of tomorrow, the Hartley name will be erased from the books. Good. Have a car ready in the morning. For the shareholder meeting? No, I said. We'll deal with that after. First, I'm going to prison. I need to pick someone up. Outside the prison gates. I sat in the back of a Cadillac, flipping through the strategic plan we'd be presenting at tomorrow's board meeting. The steel doors creaked open. Walter, my father, stepped out, carrying a simple duffel bag. His clothes were plain. Worn. He looked older than I remembered, but his posture was still straight. Tessa rushed forward to take his bag, but he brushed her off with a polite nod and walked over to the car. He ran his hand gently across the sleek black door, letting out a quiet sigh. "Mr. Hartley must really think highly of you," he said. "Letting you ride around in a car this nice." I looked him in the eye. "Get in," I said. He climbed into the car with stiff, tentative movements, then awkwardly tried to wipe down the leather seat. "I'm dirty," he mumbled. "Don't want to mess up Mr. Hartley's fancy car. Gotta say, I'm real relieved he took you in. Look how well he raised you, sharp suit, polished manners. You turned out real fine." "Raised me?" I let out a cold laugh. "You remember the start of middle school? Camille wanted to show off to her classmates, prove she had a personal servant. She forced me to wash her feet. Then tried to make me drink the water. When I refused, she slapped me. 3 times. In front of everyone. Leonard found out. Know what he said? 'Camille, don't joke around like that. That's what you call raising me?' I leaned forward slightly, voice low and sharp. I studied day and night. Got into Harvard. But she didn't want a servant with ambition, she needed someone to clean up after her. So she stopped me from going. While I was scrubbing her dorm room floors, she was in a hotel suite doting on Connor. After the abortion, when she was weak and moody, she rang a bell and I came running. That was my life. I stared out the window, jaw tight. And the smell of that foot water? I'll never forget it. Just like I'll never forget the taste of humiliation. Walter's face fell. His smile faded into silence. After a long pause, he murmured, "You can't bite the hand that fed you. Look at you now, suit and tie, sitting in the back of a luxury car. Everything you have came from the Hartleys." I said nothing. Walter had served the Hartley family for decades, faithfully, blindly. They tossed him scraps, and he gnawed on every one like it was gold. But I'm not like him. I've swallowed too much pain, endured too much humiliation. Never again will I let anyone stand over me. Today, I brought him here for one reason only. So he could witness the fall of the Hartley family. So he could see me take the throne they once denied me. When the Cadillac pulled up in front of the Hartley Group headquarters, Camille and Connor were already there waiting. Walter spotted her the moment we stepped out. He shuffled over quickly, eyes wide with reverence. "Look at you," he said, beaming. "All grown up now." Camille gave him a long, disgusted once-over. "And who the hell are you?" she said sharply. "Why do you even know me?" "I'm Gideon's father," Walter replied with an eager smile. "Mr. Hartley came to visit me 5 years ago. He showed me your picture, I recognized you right away." Something clicked in Camille's expression. She curled her lips into a slow, cruel smile. "Well," she said mockingly, "you've really raised quite the son." Walter didn't catch the sarcasm. He nodded quickly, eyes shining. "It's all thanks to you and Mr. Hartley. We're forever grateful." Camille threw me a condescending glance, then turned to Walter. "I'm thirsty," she said, voice sharp and entitled. "Go get me a bottle of water." "Yes, right away," he said, already trotting toward the nearest convenience store. I watched him go, shoulders hunched, hurrying to serve the woman who had tormented his son. Camille turned back to me and smirked. "See that?" she said. "Your father makes a much better servant than you ever did." I stood at the entrance, quietly waiting for Walter to return. He came back panting, sweat on his brow, holding out a bottle of spring water for Camille. She took it, and dropped it straight to the ground. I said I wanted it cold. He flinched. I'll go get another." She waved a hand. "Forget it. I don't want it anymore." Then, tossing me a look full of smug defiance, she turned and strutted through the revolving doors into the building. Walter stood there, lost and helpless, then shuffled back to my side. "She's just got a bit of a temper now," he said, forcing a chuckle. "Make sure to grab her a drink later, okay?" I looked at him, then said quietly, "Come on. It's time. I'm giving you permission to sit in on the meeting." Shareholder meeting. 12 board members, present and accounted for. Except for the chair at the end of the table. The chairman's seat. Empty. Camille lounged in her usual seat, chewing gum like a bored teenager. "So," she said lazily, blowing a bubble, "where's my dad?" I ignored the question and picked up the briefing folder. Flipping it open, I leaned toward the microphone. "This is our third quarterly meeting of the year," I announced. Miss Hartley was absent for the last two. I'll begin by summarizing key decisions from those sessions. Camille gave a loud, dismissive laugh. "The first time I was in the UK visiting Connor," she said, "and the second, well, he was on vacation, so he came to visit me. Priorities, you know." Around the table, faces turned grim. Eyes narrowed. Jaws clenched. She wasn't even pretending anymore. The mask was off. I cleared my throat and began, voice steady. "In Q1, I led the company's expansion into digital markets. We secured partnerships with 85 YouTube influencers and launched a holiday campaign that brought in over $40 million in profit during the Christmas season. In Q2, we cut external marketing costs by building an in-house content team, creating our own brand ambassadors and viral campaigns. That quarter, we cleared $70 million in profit, setting us up for the mid-year sales push." I was just turning the page when Camille raised a hand and cut me off. "That's enough," she said flatly. "You don't need to brag in front of me." Her gum snapped between her teeth as she narrowed her eyes. "Everything you just mentioned? That's the bare minimum of your job. And I'll tell you right now, Connor can do all of it. In fact, he'll do it better than you ever did." Across the room, Walter's face paled. He sat small and silent in the corner, a worried expression tightening his features. He still thought I needed the Hartley family to survive. Connor offered a polite, practiced smile. "You've set the stage beautifully," he said. "When I take over your position, I'll build on your foundation and take the company to the next level. Appreciate you getting everything so well prepared." I glanced at him. Of course it was well prepared. This entire empire, every contract, every strategy, every cent of profit, was the result of my work. My late nights. My reputation. My sweat. I had built the Hartley family into royalty. And all the while, to Camille and Leonard, I was nothing more than the help. A well-trained dog. Camille softened her tone, turning to Connor with a gentle smile. "You don't need to thank him. The company's on the rise. Once you take over, you'll only take it higher." Connor nodded, smiling back at her like the hero in a bad romance. "Whatever shape the company's in," he said, "I'll be right there with you. Through the highs, and the lows." Hearing that, I almost wanted to laugh. Well, at least he was ready. I cleared my throat again and continued, this time with perfect calm. In Q3, the company posted a $200 million loss. Over half of our warehouse leases expired and couldn't be renewed. On top of that, 5 of our lending banks have demanded early repayment of their loans. As of today, Mr. Leonard Hartley has fled to Canada. A pause. The primary item on today's agenda is a motion to dissolve the company. Silence. Camille blinked, frozen. The smile on her face didn't just fade, it collapsed. From glossy confidence to ghost-white dread in seconds. I let out a small, deliberate sigh. "Miss Hartley, I'm actually glad you decided to show up today. Your father's absence has raised concern with creditors. They're waiting outside." I looked her square in the eyes. "They say if the money's not paid today, they'll start collecting by the body. 10 fingers, 10 toes, $100,000 each. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I offered a cold smile. Lucky for you, Connor said he's with you no matter what. Through sweet or bitter. You owe $4 million. Between the two of you, fingers and toes combined, you just about break even. The arrogance drained from Camille like a burst balloon. She clutched my jacket, her hands trembling so badly she could barely speak. What the hell did you do? She stammered. The company was making money. We were profitable. How the hell are we suddenly bankrupt? Say something. I looked into her wide, panicked eyes and smiled gently. I've worked hard. Diligently. Day in and day out, trying to grow your family's company, I said. But you were right all along. I just wasn't good enough. Better let Connor take it from here. Because yes, this was all business. In Q1, our influencer campaigns had gone well. The numbers were strong. And then, in Q2, I noticed it, Leonard's mind slipping. So I proposed a shift, build our own content creators, reduce marketing expenses. It sounded efficient. Smart. Visionary. And then I started a new company. Privately. A partner agency that worked exclusively with Hartley Group. I told Leonard it was a new media firm built for Camille, something to help her grow into leadership. Leonard, selfish to the core, didn't even question it. He was thrilled. He saw a chance to siphon more shareholder money under the guise of internal collaboration, money that now quietly funneled into my hands. And Camille? Too busy partying to care. Every document, every contract I sent her, she signed without reading. Cashed every check. Never once asked what she was really approving. She handed the company to me with her own signature. Over and over. By the time Leonard had a brief moment of lucidity, he still thought he was outplaying me, still believed he was building a dynasty for his daughter and scheming to push me aside. He never realized he was helping me build my own. In Q2, I appeared to be working hard, strategizing, expanding, innovating. But behind the scenes? I was quietly signing influencer contracts left and right. Not just any influencers, gaming streamers. Loud, unpolished, totally irrelevant to our brand. Hartley Group sells luxury lifestyle products. Prestige. Minimalism. Sophistication. These streamers? They shouted into microphones and smashed keyboards on camera. And I made sure the contracts were ironclad, legal death traps. They couldn't negotiate. Couldn't complain. Their profit shares were scraps. Barely enough to buy a cup of coffee. By Q3, Leonard was completely gone, his mind frayed beyond return. I moved quickly. Under the guise of brand synergy, I funneled millions in marketing funds from Hartley Group into my partner agency. All smoke and mirrors. Not a single return. Not one viable conversion. And yet the company ramped up production, more products, more staff, more logistics. With no sales, the debt piled on. By all logic, the board should have intervened. But they didn't. Because they were with me. If you want to take down a kingdom, you don't do it alone. You share the spoils. These board members had worked with the Hartleys for years. And over those years, they'd watched Leonard hoard profits. Watched Camille sign million-dollar bonuses without reading a single line. They knew the truth, this family didn't lead. They consumed. Leonard's final desperate attempt to funnel shareholder funds into his own pocket? That was the last straw. The 11 other board members, every one of them, except Camille, stood behind me now. This wasn't a coup. It was a cleansing. And as Camille realized just how alone she was, she turned, almost involuntarily, toward Connor. Her eyes begged. Do something. Connor lunged for my briefing folder and began flipping through it in a rush. "Wait, just hold on a second," he said. "We've still got massive inventory sitting in warehouses. Not to mention the decades-old production lines and established clientele. That's capital. All of it." His voice quickened with hope. "If we liquidate properly, clear out the stock, and account for your and your father's shares, forget bankruptcy, you could walk away a multimillionaire." Camille exhaled audibly, her whole body slackening in relief. I nodded. "You're right. In fact, there's a company scheduled to meet with us today to discuss acquiring Hartley Group's operations." Camille's face lit up, only to contort again with rage. "You useless piece of garbage," she snapped. "What the hell are you waiting for? Go make coffee. Welcome our guests like a proper servant." I didn't argue. I brewed a fresh cup, brought it to the head of the table, the chairman's seat, and gently placed it down. Then I walked around the table, took the seat, leaned back, and lifted the cup to my lips. Took a long, calm sip. Camille stared at me like I just lost my mind. What the hell are you doing?" she sputtered. "That coffee's not for you. Who do you think you are?" I set the cup down, met her eyes, and said plainly, "Now, let's talk about the acquisition of Hartley Group." Camille stared at me, stunned, just for a second. Then her face twisted with fury. "So that's it," she spat. "You've already bent the knee to some other company. A dog for hire, running around doing someone else's dirty work. I should have known, once a servant, always a servant." She dropped into her chair with a scoff, arms crossed. "Well? What's your new master offering?" I spoke evenly. "I've had the warehouses appraised. The remaining lease terms, the production lines, the customer base, stable, loyal, long-standing. Altogether, the assets are valued at roughly $240 million. Connor's eyes lit up. He turned to Camille, breathless. "Babe, this is gold. Even after we pay off the debt, you're looking at a cut of at least $40 million. Camille nodded, her mood suddenly restored. Then she turned to me with regal disdain. "Let's not drag this out. You're not worth negotiating with. Tell your boss to wire the money now." She paused, then added with a cruel smirk. "And I have one condition." I raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" Her voice turned ice cold. "I want it written into the contract, black and white, no ambiguity. Your boss must guarantee that you will never be allowed to serve as CEO." I blinked, then chuckled softly. "I'm not the CEO, I said honestly. And that was the truth. In the new company, I was chairman. The role of CEO? That was already set aside, for Tessa, my assistant." The moment Camille heard I wasn't the CEO, she burst into laughter. It wasn't just a laugh, it was manic, cruel, triumphant. "Gideon," she howled, "if I'm going down, at least you're crawling with me. Look at you, pathetic. You couldn't even hold on to a CEO title. You got kicked to the curb and went running to kiss someone else's boots. God, you're disgusting." I watched her quietly, unfazed. "Are you done?" I asked. She waved a hand. "You're not even worth laughing at anymore. Just hand over the damn contract, $240 million. Let's get this signed." Around the room, the board members exchanged glances, some amused, some grim. None sympathetic. Camille frowned. "What's everyone staring at? Come on. Let's review the terms." I turned to her. "Did I ever say," I asked calmly, "that we were offering $240 million? She froze. I went on. "Considering depreciation on the production equipment, and the fact that most of your inventory is out of season, my company is offering $40 million. Flat." Camille slammed her hands on the table, rising in fury. What kind of lowball scam is this? That's not a deal, that's daylight robbery. Fine, I'm done. I'm not selling. There are plenty of buyers out there. We don't need you. She stormed to her feet, trembling with rage. Connor grabbed her hand gently, trying to calm her down. He looked at me and said with a sigh, "Gideon, now I see what this is. Your company never intended to buy anything. You're just here to lash out. You're bitter, and you're taking it out on Camille." I chuckled. So what? Connor squared his shoulders, voice rising. Everyone has their highs and lows. When we come back stronger, and we will, everything you did to humiliate Camille today? I'll make sure you pay for it. Tenfold. He wrapped an arm around Camille's waist, cast me a glare full of venom, and turned to leave with her. But my voice stopped them cold. Not so fast. They both froze. "This is a shareholder meeting," I said, my tone suddenly icy. "Whether or not the company is sold isn't up to you. It's decided by a vote of the board." Camille scoffed. "Who the hell would approve a deal like this?" I turned to the room. "All those in favor of selling Hartley Group to my company," I said, "please raise your hand." One by one, arms went up. Every hand, except hers. Camille's breath hitched. The color drained from her face. Connor stumbled a step back, visibly shaken by the sight. According to corporate bylaws, any major decision required a 2/3 majority to pass. At this table? The count was 11-1. I smiled. Calm. Absolute. The motion passes. Let's sign the contract. Are you all insane? Camille shrieked, losing whatever composure she had left. You're selling something worth $240 million for 40? She was no longer a socialite in pearls, she was a storm, raging in designer heels, screaming like a madwoman in the boardroom. But of course the board had voted yes. The acquiring company? We built it together. Each of these board members had quietly placed their own people, relatives, confidants, protégés, into our new structure. The acquisition was merely phase 2 of a long-planned dismembering of the Hartley dynasty. A final reckoning for the years of exploitation, arrogance, and disdain. Camille spun, face twisted in rage. You bastards! You stupid, backstabbing idiots! My father is the majority shareholder. He has veto power. One vote from him kills this deal. Her voice cracked on the last word, desperation bleeding through the fury. She was too ignorant to understand how deep this cut had gone. But Connor, he saw it. His bravado had vanished. A cold sweat spread across his forehead. His eyes flicked between the board members and the contract like he was watching a ship sink in slow motion. I leaned forward, voice steady. Your father fled the country. He's already been blacklisted by multiple regulatory agencies. He's a fugitive, Camille. He's not coming back to vote. I let the word settle like dust on marble. The board is within its rights to act in the best interest of the company, especially when the largest shareholder is no longer fit to govern. I'll vote for him. Camille snapped, grasping at the last straw. We own our shares jointly, me and my father. Together, we still outrank all of you. Do you have power of attorney? I asked. She froze. He's gone, Camille. Not dead. You don't inherit shares from a man who's still alive. And without legal authorization, you don't speak for him. Not in this room. Camille paled, her lips parting, no comeback, no scream, just stunned silence. And then... bang! The boardroom doors swung open. All eyes turned. Several large men stepped into the boardroom. Broad shoulders. Scarred knuckles. Tattoos crawling up thick necks. Faces like blunt weapons. They didn't speak right away. They didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly who they were. Hartley family creditors. Leonard, in his desperation to bypass the board, had turned to private lenders, shady money, high risk, no paper trail. His greed had come full circle. And now, these men were here to collect. I turned to Camille, voice even. Miss Hartley, the funds you're receiving today will be enough to cover the bank debts. Just barely. I paused. But I'm afraid the $4 million owed to these gentlemen, that's a different story. One of the tattooed men let out a rasping laugh. She can pay, he said, grinning. We've got ways to help her earn it. I tilted my head, tone dry. Would those be the kind of ways that allow someone to show up in multiple countries at the same time? The man's grin widened. That's our last option, he said darkly. Camille's throat bobbed. She turned to Connor, eyes wide with confusion. What are they talking about? She whispered. How can one person be in different countries at the same time? Connor's skin had turned ghostly pale. His hands were trembling. He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, he said. Let's just pay them first. We'll deal with the banks later. We'll stall. And when your dad gets back. He didn't finish the sentence. Because he knew. Leonard Hartley wasn't coming back. Without a word, I pulled out a thick folder, neatly bound, pages crisp, and placed it on the table. The contract was ready. Camille's hands trembled as she flipped through the contract. And then, her eyes froze. She looked up at me, voice shaking. Why is your name listed as the buyer? I smiled. Allow me to reintroduce myself, I said calmly. As of today, I'm the new owner of Hartley Group. And you? I leaned in slightly, letting the words land cold and final. You're just another dog at my feet. In the corner, Walter sat frozen, his jaw slack, eyes wide in disbelief. Then, thud. Camille collapsed to her knees, the sound sharp against the marble floor. Even someone as blind as she was, could now see the truth. She grabbed the hem of my suit, clutching it with both hands. Please, she choked. I was wrong, I shouldn't have treated you that way. Just, for the sake of the years my father raised you, can't you just? I cut her off with a cold laugh. You dare bring up gratitude? I stepped back slightly, shaking my head. You know exactly how you treated me. You and your father both. Don't pretend you don't. Her voice cracked. No matter what, I'm still your fiancée. I stared at her, dead-eyed. 3 days ago, you were in my wedding bed, tangled up with him. You think you still get to call yourself that? She flinched like I'd slapped her. Connor cleared his throat, clearly rattled, then whispered to her. Just sign it. Don't beg. Take the money, and I'll get us out of here. We can flee the country. You'll still live like a queen. I laughed. Even now, even here, with blood on the floor and dead at the door, Connor was still thinking about her money. How fitting. One by one, the shareholders signed their names. The ink dried quickly. I stepped aside and called Tessa. My voice was soft, but firm. Transfer the funds. Camille let out a breath of relief, turning to the tattooed men with a strained smile. Gentlemen, give me a minute. I've got access to my father's credit accounts. I'll have the payment ready right away. Connor pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders, and glared at me over her head. Remember this, he said darkly. We'll pay you back 100 times over. Camille found her voice again, sharpened, bitter. The begging was gone. You heartless bastard, she snapped. Ungrateful dog. Connor is 10 times the man you'll ever be. We'll rebuild everything overseas, and when we come back, we'll make sure you're left with nothing. I rubbed my chin thoughtfully. Then, as if remembering something, I muttered, "Ah, damn." Camille blinked. "What now?" I tapped my forehead, feigning embarrassment. "Careless of me, really. I forgot to tell you, 3 months ago, your father's credit card hit its limit. I meant to have finance pay it down, but, well, things got busy. It's frozen now." Her breath caught. "But don't worry," I added, smiling. "As soon as the acquisition money lands in his account, the bank will auto-deduct the outstanding debt." I met her eyes, calm, measured. "So really, there's no need to worry. You won't owe the bank anything, because they'll take it all." Camille swayed on her feet. Her body leaned, staggered, like the floor was disappearing beneath her. The war was over. And she'd never seen the knife coming. The tattooed man furrowed his brow, his voice low and dangerous. "So, Miss Hartley, what you're saying is, you don't have our 4 million? Camille opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Across the room, Connor had already stepped back. The moment he realized the tide was gone, he turned to leave, quietly, quickly. Camille grabbed his arm in a panic. "Where are you going?" He jerked away from her like she was on fire. "Don't drag me down with you." "What?" Connor didn't even look her in the eye. "Starting right now, we're done. No ties between us. Just now, you said we'd get through this together. This isn't about hardship anymore, Camille. This is life and death," he hissed. "Husband and wife bail when the storm hits, we're not even that." Camille collapsed. Her legs gave out, and she crumpled to the floor, lifeless, drained, everything gone. I let out a quiet laugh and turned to Connor. "Oh, no. You don't get to walk away either." He froze. His voice dropped, sharp with fear. "Don't bluff me, Gideon." He turned, trying to reclaim the smirk that used to work for him. "Look, I don't work for your company. I don't owe you a dime. So what if I slept with your fiancée? Doesn't mean you can touch me. I came and went as I pleased, today's no different." I looked at Connor's smug face and smiled. "You're right. You and I don't have much to settle." I took a slow step toward him. "But Camille, she was my fiancée, once. So maybe I will help her settle a few debts." His eyes narrowed. "What debts?" "Well, let's start small." I ticked them off on my fingers. 3 years ago, she gifted you a Ferrari. It's second-hand now, but still worth close to $1 million. That Rolex on your wrist, also a gift, I assume? Pretty sure you didn't buy that yourself. And that Tom Ford suit you're wearing, custom fit, top tier. You really expect me to believe you paid for that?" In the corner, Camille, who had all but wilted to the floor, suddenly lifted her head. Hope flashed in her eyes like lightning. She grabbed Connor's arm, gripping it with renewed energy. "Yes," she shouted. "He's right. You can't just walk away. You need to give it all back, the car, the watch, the transfers, everything. I want everything back." Connor's face twisted with rage. "What kind of nonsense is that? Gifts are gifts. Who asks for gifts back?" Camille's voice cracked. "You piece of shit. I loved you for years. I gave you everything, money, favors, a future. And now you'd rather watch me die than give any of it back." She staggered to her feet, trembling with fury. And then she lunged. Screaming, she clawed at Connor's face with both hands, her voice shrill and desperate. "I'll kill you. Give it back. You give all of it back to me." Just moments ago, they were clinging to each other like star-crossed lovers. Now, they were beating the hell out of each other. If anyone walked in off the street, they'd never believe this was a corporate boardroom. It looked more like a brawl in a back-alley food market. I sat at the head of the table, my table now, watching the show unfold with utter amusement. Connor wasn't holding back. He balled his fists and drove them into Camille's face, over and over. There was nothing gentlemanly left in him. But Camille, bleeding from the nose, face bruising, refused to let go. This man was her last lifeline, and she wasn't going down without him. She clawed at him, clung to him, even as the room spun. And when it became clear she couldn't win, she turned, panting, to the tattooed men still watching from the sidelines. "Please, help me," she cried, half hysterical. "If I sue him, I swear I'll win. I'll get every cent back and pay you first." The men looked at each other. There was a long pause. Then, finally, one of them stepped forward. With one arm, he grabbed Connor by the throat and lifted him clean off the ground, like a sack of potatoes. Connor choked, flailing. His legs kicked uselessly in the air. They didn't say a word. No threats. No drama. Because honestly, if they could get their money back without making a mess, they preferred it that way. Even for them, business was business. Connor snapped. Furious, he spat directly in Camille's face. "You're disgusting," he screamed. "I wasted years entertaining you, pretending to care, now you want to take everything back. What a joke. You used me. You're sick." Camille wiped her face, trembling with rage. "I used you," she screamed back. "I got pregnant for you. I had an abortion for you. I was ready to hand you my inheritance, you ungrateful bastard. And in the end, you were the snake." I leaned back in my chair, stroking my chin, quietly observing the chaos. How poetic. No matter what happened next, one thing was certain: Camille would never crawl back into his arms again. In the end, Camille did pay off the debt. Somehow. Which only made it clearer just how much she'd truly invested in Connor over the years. The lovers turned enemies ended up where all tragic romances go, in court. Camille filed a lawsuit, demanding the return of every car, every luxury item, and every cent. The court ruled in her favor. Connor was ordered to return all the gifts, including the Ferrari, the Rolex, the suits. Altogether, it covered roughly $2 million, enough to pay off half her debts. But the real blow came when her legal team traced back the cash. Over the years, she'd transferred $2.8 million to Connor in cash alone. And the problem? Connor had already spent it. Every penny. Lavish trips. Designer goods. VIP tables. Private jets. It was all gone. So even with a court ruling, Camille was left holding the bag. And in the final act of desperation, or brilliance, Camille fully embraced her father's legacy of cold, transactional cruelty. She sold the $2.8 million debt to the tattooed creditors. For them, it was a gift. A legally binding debt, sold at a discount. They'd paid $2 million. And now, they had every incentive to extract the full $2.80, by any means they preferred. After acquiring Hartley Group's production lines, customer base, and inventory, I moved fast. We launched aggressive marketing, liquidated all the remaining products, and turned unsold goods into clean cash flow. Then I terminated the contracts with the gaming influencers, cutting the dead weight. In their place, we signed creators whose audiences actually aligned with luxury lifestyle branding. We had prepared for this for a long time: flawless campaigns, sharp strategy. With the backing of Hartley's existing clientele, the new company scaled up rapidly. Smooth. Profitable. As for Leonard, he died quietly in Canada, alone. His name erased, his legacy buried. He was never coming back. The next time I saw Camille, I was sitting in the back seat of my car. She was standing alone on a street corner. Once the privileged daughter of a business empire, now reduced to selling herself on the sidewalk. She wore something cheap, tight, tasteless. Thick makeup caked her face, but it couldn't hide the raw damage, her skin mottled, her features hollow. A cigarette dangled between her fingers. Her eyes were vacant. I tapped the glass. "Pull over," I told the driver. I rolled the window down and gave her a small wave. She didn't recognize me. She trotted over, smiling automatically, the way someone smiles when their dignity has long since been sold. She slid into the back seat, and instantly, the cloying stench of cheap perfume and expired cosmetics filled the air. She glanced at me, offered a sultry, "Hey, mister," before actually seeing my face. Her voice caught. Her eyes went wide. I looked at her calmly. "Where's Connor?" I asked. She blinked. "I don't know," she said, voice thin. "We haven't seen each other since the court ruling." I nodded. "Makes sense." Then I glanced at her outfit. The smeared lipstick. The shame she tried to hide under a plastic smile. "You know," I said, "this job kind of suits you." She laughed, awkward, dry, and brittle. Clutching the hem of her skirt, she tried to keep smiling. But there was nothing left to protect. In that moment, looking at her slouched in the back seat, makeup smeared, hands trembling, she began to blur with the memory of someone I used to know. That little girl from childhood. The same voice, but stripped of pride. Camille spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "I can't survive like this anymore. I know I was wrong. I ruined everything. If it'll make you forgive me, I'll get on my knees. I'll do anything. Please, can you take me in?" I looked at her, really looked at her. "Do you remember," I asked, "that time at the beginning of the school year?" Her eyes flicked to mine, wary. "You made me wear my brand new shirt," I said. "Then in front of the entire class, you made me get down on all fours. You rode on my back like I was an animal. Laughed while my shirt tore open against the concrete." Her tears fell freely now. "I'm sorry," she whispered through sobs. I didn't respond right away. "Do you remember who mended that shirt?" I asked. "Your mother. She sat under the lamp and stitched it back together, one thread at a time. That woman was kind. Gentle. She had nothing, but she gave everything." I watched Camille shrink smaller with each word. "And when Leonard made his fortune," I continued, "he discarded her without a second thought. And you? You took his side. You left her behind. Even when she was dying, asking just to see you one last time, you never showed." Camille lowered her head. And this time, she didn't speak. She had nothing left to say. I let out a quiet sigh. "Your mother," I said, "was the only person in the Hartley family who ever showed me warmth." I looked at Camille, sunken, mascara smudged, desperate. "If you and your father hadn't abandoned her, if you'd stayed by her side, I would have remembered that. I would have repaid that kindness. I wouldn't have turned against your family." I paused. "But kindness is kindness. And debt is debt. The Hartley family may be gone, but I still owe her." I looked her in the eye. "Come to the office tomorrow. I'll give you a job. The pay won't be much, but it'll be enough to keep you off the street." I leaned back into the seat, expression unreadable. I won't let her daughter starve on a sidewalk. Camille's eyes widened. She sat up straight. "What kind of job?" she asked quickly, hope flooding her face again. The next day, a major client was scheduled for a business meeting. I had my driver bring him to the office in the Bentley. We pulled up in front of the building. The glass doors opened automatically. And there she was. Camille stood by the entrance, head bowed slightly, a welcome sash draped awkwardly across her shoulders. Her makeup had been wiped off, her uniform modest. But her eyes were hollow. She bowed low with mechanical grace. "Good morning, Mr. Ashford," she said. The client glanced at her as we passed. He frowned faintly. "She looks familiar," he said. "I swear I've seen her somewhere, but I just can't place it." I smiled, couldn't help myself. I shot Camille a quick glance, then turned back to the client and said, casually, "Just a dog." I stepped through the doors. "She's not worth remembering."